We have more on the scandal on Activision Blizzard and the scandal hidden in plain sight with Ubi Soft, as well as landmarks for consoles and good sales figures for consoles. All that and more in the past week in video game news. And welcome to News Trash, a look back at the past 7 days in video games. Right, usually I intro this by saying, how are you, Rob? But I don't think I can do that this week because it'd be too hard of a transition.
Yeah, I mean, we'd literally be going, I'm fine, to, oh, I'm depressed now.
It's basically the news problem, isn't it? How they have like this horrible crisis, something's happened, there's been a disaster, and then I go to the next story about a woman who's breeding pet dogs and they all look really cute. It's such an alienating thing.
In news circles, they call that human interest stories, and all channels and all newspapers and all magazines do human interest stories for one reason and one reason only.
Yes.
Right? They all do it because there is so much of the doom and gloom and death and despair that you need something just to cleanse the palate before you move on to the regular programming on that channel.
Yes, and with that, we have to go to the regular programming. There's an article which gamesindustry.biz have put together, which has collected rather nicely all of the headlines from the Activision Blizzard, all of this which is going on, really. It's a gaming outlet, whole Activision Blizzard coverage.
Yeah, several of the...
gamer editor-in-chief, I should say, Kirk McKean, shared his decision to do so via Twitter, writing, "We're going to stop covering Activision and Blizzard games until there's some real change and this gaslighting bollocks ends. We'll cover the ongoing news regarding the current story, but we won't be covering the games."
They're just one of the channels. There's so many now.
Yeah, it says The Gamer was soon followed by Prima Games, which also extended its coverage decision to Ubisoft and YouTube channel Game Explain.
Yeah, and now there's so many channels now, so many publications and channels that simply will not cover Activision Blizzard games at the moment. And some of them have extended, and rightly so, I would say, that coverage ban to Ubisoft, because Activision Blizzard is getting all the headlines at the moment, but there is stuff going on at Ubisoft, which we talked about last week.
Right, I'm just going to run through the next, because there's quite a lot here. Former Activision Blizzard exec apologised for failing women. That's former founder and president and CEO Mike Morhaime.
Yeah.
And former VP of Story and Franchise Development Chris Metzen have both apologised, but this thing still happened during their tenure with the company.
Yeah, exactly.
Activision Blizzard employee reveals plans for walkout. Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick details action to address issues raised by lawsuit.
Yep. Which I think is... he's come out with that, and he's come out with it kind of a week and a half after everything exploded.
Yeah.
A week and a half after everything exploded.
World of Warcraft team promises changes following Activision Blizzard lawsuit.
Yeah, they promised changes, but they removed one of the people who was heavily criticised and also was fired because of misconduct, Alex Afrasabi, who is basically public enemy number one at the moment. They basically made him an NPC in World of Warcraft, and they had various other things relating to other people who've been accused in World of Warcraft, and they removed those now, which, is a step in the right direction, but it is still just a step.
There's more. Shareholder rights law firm investigating Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
Shareholder rights law firm Robbins LLP has launched an investigation into Activision Blizzard, with concerns that certain directors and officers at the firm have violated the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 and breached their
fiduciary
duties to the company. Never seen that word before.
I know that word. Right, so this one is actually, of all of the stories that we've had so far, this one seems the most innocuous, but I would say is probably the most lethal to Activision Blizzard as a company.
Certainly is. But we can't stick on one for too long.
No, we're not. We're not.
Over 3,800 current and former Activision Blizzard staff decry response to lawsuit. The former and current staff of the company signed an open letter condemning the company's reaction to the lawsuit, which called Activision Blizzard's response abhorrent and insulting to all we believe our company should stand for.
Yeah, this is the thing. The part of this was a response to that Fran, what's her name? I think she used to be the former security advisor to George W. Bush. And, for any member of the Bush White House, I would say, just don't get involved. Just stay away. We saw what you did. Her response was literally, it's old stuff. There's no need to bring it up now.
Yeah, that's really dangerous thinking.
Yeah.
And saying it out loud in a public platform is even worse. Activision Blizzard staff respond to Bobby Kotick's statement.
Yeah.
The employee statement specifically details the areas that Kotick's statement appeared to not address and added, "This is the beginning of an enduring movement in favour of better labour conditions for all employees, especially women, in particular women of colour, transgender women, non-binary people and other marginalised groups."
Yeah, absolutely.
On the same note, Ubisoft back Activision Blizzard protesters call for industry-wide change.
Not Ubisoft the company, Ubisoft staff.
Yes. Over 500 people from 32 offices in Ubisoft. And the last one, Activision Blizzard confirms former WoW creative director was fired over misconduct, which you highlighted earlier, Alex Afrasebi.
Yeah. And that's because, that was because of, various misconduct. But one of the things that's come out this week is that at a BlizzCon event, I think it was in 2013, Alex Afrasebi and a bunch of other people who were working at Blizzard engaged in the harassment of females in a hotel suite that they named the Cosby Suite. And this was at a time when, in America, there were already widespread rumours about Bill Cosby.
So,
yeah.
Activision are in, pardon my language, but deep shit.
Well, you remember last week I said I find it difficult to believe that that Activision Blizzard can continue as a corporate entity.
Yeah.
Yeah, all I'm seeing is nails in coffins now. Quite literally, all I'm seeing is that.
This is like the biggest destruction, like self-destruction of a company through an arrogant few who believe themselves to be gods over everybody because of the power that they have, like upper-class white guys.
Yeah.
I've never seen that sort of influence have this sort of impact on a company.
It's one of those situations where you have so much corporate power, and Activision Blizzard aren't the only company in video games that actually have this kind of structure. And we see it with EA, we see it with Ubisoft. Now, there's been no rumours of anything coming out from EA recently. I will say, I will qualify that by saying recently. There's no lawsuits against EA for this kind of behaviour recently. Again, I don't know about the past. I haven't looked into this. But Ubisoft, on the other hand, that's not a good situation either.
No, this is part 2 of Ubisoft because there was part 1, I think, last year or the year before. But, yes, that's the next story. Ubisoft employees criticise CEO's response to open letter about workplace misconduct.
Yeah.
This is Yves Guillemot.
A bunch of 500 people, wasn't it? Something like that. They've
1,000 people, current and former
Is it 1,000
staff,
now?
accused
Wow.
Ubisoft management of offering nothing more than a year of kind words, empty promises, and an inability and unwillingness to remove known offenders.
That guy that I mentioned last week, who I thought had been fired, right? Uguez, whatever his name is, turns out he hadn't been fired. After looking into it, he basically got moved to their Paris office.
This is telling, right? Because when the Catholic Church were being rightfully accused of all sorts of things, I'm not going to go into it because it's, trigger warnings for a lot of people and it's really unpleasant, unsavoury. They didn't fire those people from the church. They didn't get the law involved. They just took them from the parish and took them to a central office, out of the limelight, out of sight. The fact that Ubisoft, who have people who are abusing people, being sexual predators with people, are taking sort of tactics from the Catholic Church in this same regard, I actually find kind of disgusting.
There is no kind of disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting.
It's disgusting. And I'll say, people say this. These games aren't made by abusers. These games are made by hardworking devs. It's the people at the top that are the abusers. So if you don't like this, you can say, don't buy these games. But in doing that, you're also punishing the people who spent a lot of hard work, developing these games. So it's a very hard situation to say, how do you react to this sort of thing happening?
Well, this is where you get to the complication of this entire situation, the one with Activision Blizzard and the one with Ubisoft and the one with anyone else or any other company that's going to be involved in this sort of thing. The biggest problem that you face is that if you do an outright boycott of these things, then a lot of people will basically lose their livelihood. A lot of innocent people who aren't involved, people who may have even been victims themselves, are going to lose their livelihood. And so you will literally, as consumers, will walk in this fine line between supporting the innocent and the victims and decrying the people who have caused this situation to come about in the first place. Do you see what I mean? It's one of those bizarre things that you just don't find in other industries.
Continuing the bad news, this is a story from last week which kind of got lost a little bit in the mix. But Skull and Bone is too big to fail, despite 8 years of tortured development, and I think it was £120 million spent on it so far.
Yep. It's had reboot after reboot. It's had redesign after redesign. It's had a toxic production culture, which was highlighted in that Kotaku report, because this has been kind of the baby of Ubisoft Singapore. I mean, if that doesn't tell you just how much of a toxic culture exists at Ubisoft Singapore, the fact that they can't even produce one game.
Well, it's not entirely their fault. One former developer told Kotaku in that report, every time we got feedback from Paris, they would just freak out and change everything and then change the people working on it. And that happened multiple times. The toxic culture permeating the Singapore studio is in no small part responsible for most of the production issues, reboots, rebrands, and rebrands, and reboots that have plagued Skull and Bones for a decade.
Yeah, and at this point, I would scrap the project. I mean, even after a year of failure, I would have scrapped the project after a year. I wouldn't have kept it on for another 7 years.
Yeah. Let's draw a line in that part of the show, because honestly, I think it can all be summed up with there is a reckoning a-coming, and two companies are firmly in that reckoning's sights. And I don't know what's going to be left, what impact, what damage is going to be done to Activision Blizzard and Ubisoft, but they're not getting away with this. I don't even know how they're going to operate, honestly.
Well, do you know what? Do you know one of the things that this Skull and Bones story highlights, just to round this off, right? There is a toxic culture in video games, right? And there is a racially toxic culture in video games as well. We've known that for years, yeah?
Racist, sexist, all of them.
Yeah, but the thing is, this actually highlights the racially toxic culture more than anything else. The fact that Ubisoft Singapore keep putting something forward and it keeps getting knocked back by Ubisoft France. Now, here's the question. Has that ever happened with something that's come from Canada? Ubisoft Canada, or wherever it is, Ubisoft Montreal, doesn't get knocked back anywhere near as much as Ubisoft Singapore. And the main reason for that is because the people who work in the Singapore office, most of them aren't white, most of them don't speak French, most of them aren't French-Canadian or Canadian.
I would say something like, don't put words in the mouth of Ubisoft, but honestly, I don't think they've deserved that honour, really.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is, if you look at the treatment of the two studios by their main office in France, there is a big difference, which, any journalist who is investigating this sort of thing would probably find for themselves.
Right, moving on. Draw a line in the sand and all of that horror and nightmare stuff which is going on in the video game world right now is something a little less horrific and industry shattering.
But still hypocritical.
Recently, Phil Spencer said in an interview, I can't remember whether it was with The Guardian or Kind of Funny, but he said he was worried about the future of video games, or the history of video games to be more precise. Well, funny that you should say that. Not a few weeks later, here, suck on this headline, folks. Forza Motorsport 7, to be removed from sale due to, quote, end-of-life status. Tencent Racing Studio will retire game after only 4 years on shelves.
Yeah, I asked you, what the hell does end-of-life status mean for a video game? Because it's not alive.
Take it out back with a gun, and you know.
Do the old Yella Forza Motorsport.
They're just old Yella Forza Motorsport.
Oh my god. This is one of those bizarre things that I cannot get my head around the idea of this, right? I simply cannot get my head around the idea of this. It's a video game. It's a digital product, right? Okay, you might have it on disc, but it's still a digital product. It takes up a little bit of server space. Not a lot, considering how big servers can be. How the hell do you have a lifespan on something like that? It's not a can of meat or a loaf of bread or something like that with an expiry date.
Well, here we are. It's making me worried about sort of digital ownership because it was always, Sony this, Sony that, Sony this, Sony that, Sony the devil, Sony that. But the fact that this has happened Microsoft now, I don't think it's...
Yeah.
I think it's a long-term issue that I don't think they're going to go anywhere anytime soon.
The fact that, this end-of-life status means that the game itself and its DLC won't be available on Game Pass or to purchase on the Microsoft Store.
Yeah.
We've said this before. You and I have both said this before. Digital rights ownership, who owns the things that you purchase online? Who actually owns them?
You're just renting them for a bit.
Yeah. And that is a fundamental thing that somebody somewhere is going to file a lawsuit against Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft or somebody and say, this is mine. I own this. You have no right to take away what is my property. And they'll take it to court, and it might take several years, but eventually the consumer will win. And then the shitstorm will happen, and it'll cascade down, because that's what poo does.
This is a rumour, but it's a rumour which is being substantiated by two of the biggest muck swillers, or rumour spreaders, whatever you want to describe them as. Jason Schreier and Jason Grubb have commented that Horizon Forbidden West is delayed until next year. It's going to be delayed until next year.
You mean Jeff Grubb?
What did I say?
Jason Grubb.
Well, it's a sort of conglomerate of the two people.
Jason Grubb.
Yeah. Or Jeff Schreier, the sort of becoming Gestalt entity.
Yeah, I like that. Gestalt entity, that's a good term. Anyway, this kind of ties into an impossible mission that we have been working on for a little bit.
Yeah, I think it has to be our next one.
Yeah, so it'll be our next impossible mission where we do expand a little bit on this, but it's going to be this year has been hard for video games. Last year was tough. This year has been hard. Next year, arguably, will be even tougher.
But for very, very different reasons.
Yeah.
But some good news.
Yeah.
It's great news for console holders and platform holders.
Finally, the good news.
Because on one end, PlayStation 5 has sold 10 million consoles, making it Sony's fastest ever. I think it beat the PlayStation 4 to the same record by 1 month. So when people say it's impossible to get a PlayStation 5, at this phase, it was just as hard to get a PlayStation 4, but for a litany of different reasons.
Yeah.
And the other side of that discussion, this news story, is that Xbox Series X and S are Microsoft's fastest selling consoles ever. I think they outsold the PlayStation 1 month in America. And for a company which is basically clawed themselves up from, at one point, after the Don Matrick debacle, Microsoft almost closed the Xbox gaming wing. So for them to climb back and outsell PlayStation in 1 month, it doesn't sound like a big statistic, but the fact that that's a turned corner. And these two companies are selling a lot of consoles. It's good time for gaming. It's a competitive time for gaming, and that is fantastic.
PlayStation selling 10 million, I think that's great. And I'm more of the view that the Xbox Series X and S being the fastest selling Microsoft consoles ever, that to me makes me very happy, because that means that the market is slowly becoming more competitive, and people are not as enamored with PlayStation to the point where they will ignore everything else that exists in the market. Because that used to be the case. And with the first Xbox, everyone was so enamored with the PlayStation that they basically ignored the Xbox. Xbox 360 managed to claw a little bit back, but not as much.
Well, it clawed back because it was released a year in advance.
Yeah.
So they got a great deal of mileage out of that.
Yeah, but the Xbox One, yeah.
It was a misfire. That whole generation was kind of just, how can we get back to some sort of competitive
parity
level, some level of parity, yeah. And they did, I think. Eventually, they did.
Eventually, they did, but I mean, it took them a while.
But yeah, I think we're on for a generation. I think this is going to be a fantastic generation. I've went on record and said the PlayStation 4 Xbox One generation wasn't very good because the competition was minimal, to say the least. But with stuff like this, Xbox having great months, PlayStation selling 10 million, this competition is back, and that is good for gaming. And let's just not ignore the fact that Nintendo is quietly outselling them all.
I have a weird prediction, right? And this is going to sound totally odd. And yes, if there are people out there who want to shout at me for this prediction, feel free. You know, I will happily ignore you along with everybody else. But I reckon that this generation of consoles, right? This generation of consoles, the way it is all playing out and the way that the kind of gaming sphere is playing out might be the last one for kind of in front of your TV consoles. I reckon with something like the Steam Deck and with the popularity of the Switch, the next consoles that Sony and Microsoft come out will be mobile based. They will be mobile and transportable from one place to another.
Take a cue from Nintendo and be a little bit of both.
Yeah, but I reckon that this is the last generation we will have just static consoles that sit on your shelf or on your video cabinet or something like that and don't go anywhere.
World is changing. The world is changing. Next news story, one which has kind of been buried. A bit of a fine, this one. Sony Interactive Entertainment to support indie developers through planned initiative.
Yeah.
Marvelous has announced that Sony Interactive Entertainment will support indie developers through the Indie Game Incubator Initiative. The official press release states that Sony Interactive Entertainment will work alongside several other major developers to help foster indie developers through the program. Microsoft is also going to be a part of this initiative.
Yeah, I mean, is this an initiative that is actually solely in Japan, or is it a global initiative? That's the question. Well, the news
broke from 4Gamer. And it's an article which is entirely in Japanese. So, pass.
Then I would say it's probably focused more on PlayStation Japan.
Well, the few things that I can make out is ID Xbox, Unity, IGI, which is the Indie Game Incubator. That's the only things which are in English.
Well, that then suggests to me that this is mainly focused on the indie developers in Japan and probably Korea and China as well, to a lesser degree. I think part of this is a pushback against the idea that Sony is abandoning its Japanese market, them joining this indie game incubator. And I think it's a great thing that they have. I think it's a great thing that Microsoft have joined. I'd like to see other publishers and developers joining in as well.
Oh, it's got some quite big collaborators. I did a bit of digging, and not a bit of digging. It's organised by Marvelous, which is the company operate, and its collaborators. It's got Nvidia, Epic, CRI Wave, Unity, Steam, PlayStation, ID Xbox, Kobe UNESCO City of Design. So that's the city of Kobe. It's got some pretty big fish there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Steam are in this. Epic Games are in this. Unity is in this. It's got some really good sponsors and collaborators. What I like about this is that this is one of those initiatives. I think this is specifically for Japan, given the list of collaborators and sponsors, especially when you mention Kobe. So I think this is mainly aimed at the Japanese video games market. I would have liked to have seen more things like this in other countries, especially developing countries. I think that we've done an episode on China, right? We've done an episode on how China is the sleeping giant of video games. it would have been great for Microsoft and PlayStation to basically have initiatives like this in China, or in India, or, even some of the African nations start developing indie games from those. It'd be great, wouldn't it?
Right, let's run through these last few stories quickly because they are just quick stories. In a recent internet stream show, Washi Naga, Final Fantasy 16 producer Naoki Yoshida has confirmed that the game is going to be filmed first with English voice actors. Not just English voice actors, regional English voice actors with accents.
It's great. This is fantastic because it's an annoying thing that it's basically a pet peeve that both of us have. When you have something that's filmed in, say, medieval England, but all you get is like a Texan drawl, or a new somebody who sounds like they're from Brooklyn, or one of the New York boroughs or something like that.
Well, the big example is the Vinland Saga anime that they put on Amazon Prime. Vinland Saga is an Icelandic Scandinavian story, and the dub is either English or Japanese. So I don't know what that means English. For the story, but it makes a mess of it.
It's not English, it's American. I refuse to call them English dubs.
American or Japanese, and I don't know what that means for the story, but it's not the same story that's in the manga.
Yeah, this is the thing that annoys me, because I've said this in anime circles, and people who know me know I've said this in anime circles for about 20 years now. We live in a global culture. It is easy enough to get people from other countries to actually do the voice acting, and there are talented voice actors in all countries. So you shouldn't need to focus so much on just having American accents for all of it. If you have a character who's French, get a French voice actor. If you have a character who's English, get an English voice actor. Someone who actually has an accent. Because when you have all of that in, it adds more depth, more texture to whatever you're producing.
And there's a new video game developer. It's been described as AAA, but I don't agree. It's got people coming from Naughty Dog, Infinity Ward, Bingie.
That's staying in.
Bungie and Sony Santa Monica. Just to give them some of them names, that's Michael Mumbauer, who was with I can't remember the name of the group. It was the development group that worked under Naughty Dog.
It
was Taylor Kurosaki and Jeff Minkov, and rounding out the four is Harold Kim.
It was PlayStation's visual arts group.
That's
he was
the
with
one, yeah.
There's veterans from so many different areas, and and so many different publishers and developers. You mentioned them: Naughty Dog, EA, Infinity Ward, PlayStation, Bungie. But yeah,
they're not a AAA developer, because you can't be a AAA developer and we've not made a game yet.
Yeah, the name that they've chosen for their company, it's That's No Moon, which, okay, it's a Star Wars reference. We all get that it's a Star Wars reference. Well, those of us who've seen Star Wars get that it's a Star Wars reference.
Anyhow, Netflix Dragon Age TV series rumoured to be in development.
I like this because this, to me, tickles several of my meta buttons. Because Netflix, right, and this is where it gets a bit weird. Netflix have decided they're going to enter the video games market, and they're going to focus on kind of mobile game type things, but those are going to be spin-offs or reinforcing the marketing for their existing Netflix franchises that are streaming on their channel, right? So those mobile games are going to be games like the Stranger Things game and stuff like that. Fine. But now Netflix is doing a Dragon Age thing, but Dragon Age is an existing video game property. So does that mean Netflix are going to do a Dragon Age game that is a spin-off of their adaptation of a game, which then means that they're also going to, somehow they're going to start working in collaboration with EA, and then maybe have like sidle into video games that way? Is this one of those sneaky moves, or is it just they decided to do a Dragon Age TV show?
Speaking of...
I know, conspiracy theories.
Netflix live-action Pokemon TV series reportedly in the works under Lucifer's Joe Henderson. This is shaping up to be akin to Ryan Reynolds' Detective Pikachu movie in that sort of world of Pokemon.
Yeah, the fact that the article references specifically that it's Lucifer's Joe Henderson is what tickles me with this one. I know most people are going to be focusing on the fact that there's a live-action Pokemon coming along, and all I will say is, yeah, there's a live-action Pokemon coming along, and if it was actual, proper, Pokemons being like animal-type things, then expect more of something like Shadowstar Narutaru than Pokemon, which probably isn't going to happen.
He's been trying to be a manga hipster now, so I'm just going to cut the episode short here. It could have went on longer. It had more stories, loads more stories, but you're not getting them now because he made it like that. He ruined it.
I didn't make it like that. All I'm saying is the fact that they've chosen Lucifer's Joe Henderson, and they focused on the Lucifer.
He ruined it. That's all I'm saying. That's all we have time for this week. Please do check out some of the other episodes that we've got going on around the channel. We have a new episode of Impossible Mission in which we talk about PlayStation's failure and the Steam Deck. Very clickbaity there, but there's a good reason why it's called that. You'll have to just check it out and find out. If you like us, please do subscribe, click that bell notification, comment, engage us on many of the talking points that we brought up this week. Or, check out our Patreon. We have exclusive content. We've got Doctor Who articles. We've got Director's Lottery. And we have more pop screen. Some Patreons are on the screen now. Join them. Get some exclusive content. We'll see you next week with more news and more trash.
Yes. Bye.